Because listen, okay, there's still wine in my system.
That's clearly how I'm going to start this episode.
Listen, it's fine.
Okay.
We're all good. Mm-hmm.
So I worked very, very hard this week.
Mm-hmm.
Not to talk to you about this. I wanted to give you no indication of my thoughts and opinions because I want you to give it first, completely unaffected by mine. But before we get into it, hello, Ann.
You say it.
Fine, you're no fun. Hello, and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series, I am joined by my wonderful co-host,
ThatDarnKitteh.
Kitty and I are both going into this story completely new with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment, it's loading.
The readers, my friend.
Oh, God.
And we'll keep on reading to the end.
Okay, sorry. I still don't know this apart. Each segment we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way. This is Mistborn Abridged, a blind read through, and today we are covering chapter 22.
22.
Yeah.
What did you think of this chapter, Kitteh?
Look, it wasn't fire. So it was an chapter. Yeah, it was very cute. I enjoyed it. It's like, well, not what I mean by it's not fire is then I'm not like, oh my god, I have to talk to Dorkus about it. We need to talk about it right now. So it's interesting that you were like trying not to speak to me about it. So
filler episode.
Yeah, it feels like filler, but you need this, and yeah, there's just some good. There actually is some really good Vin work here. Because Vin's dilemma.
Oh.
You don't like it. You don't like it.
Oh my god.
Okay. Let me
that hurt. Sorry.
Okay. So you like the Vin work. Okay.
No.
I mean, you don't like the Vin work. Yes. So, but basically, I just think her dilemma, how she is dealing with the nobility, all of that. I think that's done well. But let's see what yours. I love that my opinion differs, and you're probably going to change my mind to sway right to yours. It's just how I am.
I'm sorry. That just hurt so much.
Yeah.
This is great. Sorry. I'm sorry to say that I hate this chapter. This is the worst chapter, in my opinion, in this book thus far. I think it totally assassinates Vin's character irreparably.
Really? Irreparably?
I have some biases here. I have a male bias in regard to one specific line in the chapter. I think the structure of her conversation with Doxen is completely out of whack. I think it's similar to the last chapter in the sense that I suspect it was written early in his writing process and out of sync, because there's a name drop in the very last sentence of the chapter, and most of what she says in the chapter she has already thought in previous chapters, and we already know what's motivating these thoughts of hers. But the way the name drop happens in the last sentence, it's almost like Brandon Sanderson wanted us, the readers, to be unknowing in what was motivating it. But no, we've already had this virtually this exact dialogue with the knowledge. Basically what I'm saying is I don't think Brandon Sanderson intended to go so hard into the Elend crush stuff in previous chapters, because we already knew it, so it wasn't a surprise when the last
I understand. These beats were already hit. Now he beat this dead horse, basically.
Her character work, I think, is both, it takes a hit. She takes a big morally negative hit in this chapter, for one thing, and then this part at the end, it feels like there was this massive acceleration in the character arc, and it's like, whoa, wait, you were super conflicted about this 2 chapters ago. What happened that you speak with such conviction this time on this topic? And then there's a line that just completely counters a thought and an opinion that she has had that we have praised in a previous chapisode. So this was, I thought in my first, I read this 3 times. I read it the first time.
Is there anything here?
I got so angry. And then I had to reread it to see if I was being irrational. And both of those 2 times that I read it, I was exceptionally hard on the prose and the dialogue. But when I read it today before this record to remind myself of everything, I didn't experience that element of my initial read-through criticism as much. So that's good. And having calmed down a bit, there are certainly elements of the Vin Sazed conversation that I think are very good. We learn a bit more about Feruchemy, and it's such a unique method of magic that I almost struggle to conceptualize it, which I say that in the best possible way. So that's a redeeming quality in this chapter for me. But
yeah, I think the character stuff, because the first thing I really went to was the character stuff. So that is the Vin stuff. That is what stands out. So I can see that your overall,
But to your filler feelings, I would say very, very little plot moved forward this chapter. There's the Spook Vin thing, but other than that, there isn't really any plot.
Yeah.
In my observation.
Well, something had to be happening while Calciel was traveling and things like that. So I'm okay with it not having, the plot didn't have to take a huge leap forward for me. So I was just taking it as it is. And I think I can see exactly what you're talking about with Vin, right? The disappointing nature of the way this is. But I kind of accepted her character downfall in this chapter.
And I do have a male bias here.
Yeah.
I completely acknowledge that.
So, well, let's see. I mean, and also you have a different brain to my brain, okay? That's it. You're a different person. So we have different, that's it. I like that we had, that's the whole point of sharing our experience along the way is that it differs between them. So yeah, but let's see if I get really, I've also read through it a couple of times, so let's see if I can get angry with you, because now I'll start seeing exactly what you're talking about, and then I'll be like, oh my god, why didn't I see it by myself? Let's see. Okay.
Excellent. Let's get started then, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
At first there were those who didn't think the deepness was a serious danger, at least not to them. However, it brought with it a blight that I have seen infect nearly every part of the land. Armies are useless before it. Great cities are laid low by its power. Crops fail and the land dies. This is the thing I fight. This is the monster I must defeat. I fear that I have taken too long. Already so much destruction has occurred that I fear for mankind's survival. Is this truly the end of the world as many of the philosophers predict? So 2 things.
Yeah.
First, there is that element of a lack of trust that I mentioned from last chapter now. Ingrained into my psyche. We don't know what's missing here.
Yeah.
But I lied. 3 thoughts. Thought the second, global warming allegory.
Yeah.
And then thought the third, what if the ash and the ash mounts are the deepness? Yeah.
No, that is it. This seems more confirmation of you didn't really win against the deepness. It could have been worse, I think, but this wasn't much of a victory considering the effect it's had on the world. And it's quite funny that is this truly the end of the world? It's like, well, yeah, it actually could have been. It seems like it was the end of the world. The way that question could be read is this truly the end of the world? Like, oh, could this really be the end of the world? It's like, no, how am I trying to say this? I'm trying to figure out how. Reading that question, I'm like, of course it's the end of the world. It looks exactly like the end of the world. You're describing the end of the world. This blight is the end of the world. And then you just say, is this truly the end of the world, as many philosophers predict? And that comes in also going like, where is that line? Well, what gets taken out between these two things as well? So yeah, just more questions about the epigraph for me.
Oh, that totally reminds me. Slight non sequitur. There was one other thing that I disliked in this chapter. A certain world building element that made me have to go back and reread the prologue. Yes, chapter the prologue. And sort of reaffirm what I had initially thought, what my impression of the world was. And then it is also connected to what Ham was saying in the previous chapter that we criticized as well. But we'll get to that. Sorry, continue, Kitteh.
That's it. I'm ready to get into it.
All right. Well, this chapter opens with Vin reading the journal. So, Kitteh, would you please start this?
Oh, I didn't realize that I'm reading it. Okay. It makes sense. Vin is very bad at reading, and this will work out. We arrived in Terrace. We arrived in Terrace earlier this week. Vin read. Excuse me. Let me start again. We arrived in Terrace earlier this week, and I have to say I find the countryside beautiful. What? Oh, I have to say what? Sorry, excuse me. Why did I put the comma there? You know what? The comma just took its time. It just put itself. Anyway, okay, let me put it. I'm coming back. I don't know, you flustered me on this. I think it's because I just.
She was not expecting this, folks.
Yeah. Okay. We arrived in Terrace earlier this week, and I have to say I find the countryside beautiful. The great mountains to the north, with their bald snow caps and forested mantles, stand like watchful guards over this land of green fertility. My own lands to the south are mostly flat. I think that they might look less dreary if there were a few mountains. I think this is authentic. This is how Vin would read, because she goes, she hasn't read a lot. Okay. My own lands to the south are mostly flat. I think that they might look less dreary if there were a few mountains to vary the terrain. The people here are mostly herdsmen, though timber harvesters and farmers are not uncommon. It is a pastoral land, certainly. It seems odd that a place so remarkably agrarian could have produced the prophecies and theologies upon which the entire world now relies. We picked up a group of terrace packmen to guide us through the difficult mountain passages. Yet these are no ordinary men. The stories are apparently true. Some terracemen have a remarkable ability that is most intriguing. Somehow they can store up their strength for use on the next day. Before they sleep at night, they spend an hour lying in their bedrolls, during which time they suddenly grow very frail in appearance, almost as if they had aged by half a century. Yet, when they wake the next morning, they become quite muscular. Apparently, their powers have something to do with the metal bracelets and earrings that they always wear. The leader of the packmen is named Rashek, and he is rather taciturn. Nevertheless, I don't know how I should say. Brochet. Nevertheless, Brochet, inquisitive as always, has promised to interrogate him in the hopes of discovering exactly how this wondrous strength storing is achieved. Tomorrow we begin the final stage of our pilgrimage, the far mountains of Terrace. There, hopefully, I will find peace, both for myself and for our poor land.
Okay.
You can listen. You can read that part if you want to take it out.
No, I
will not take offense. But I do think, you know what, we can leave it in, considering how Vin it can expose things, because Vin isn't a good reader. It works.
I will reread the passage that I am about to comment on, but otherwise we and the world are stuck with your complete reading. Somehow they can store up their strength for use on the next day. Before they sleep at night, they spend an hour lying in their bedrolls, during which time they suddenly grow very frail in appearance, almost as if they had aged by half a century.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when they wake the next morning, they become quite muscular. That imagery to me was creepy.
Yeah, that is very scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that look? Like aged by half a century. Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah, I almost imagined them becoming mummified at night.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just something about that I was like, ugh.
Yeah, it would look really. So this is the insight into their magic.
Yes.
Or at least one thing they can do, and it really seems quite. I don't know. It seems quite unlikely that these things are not related to alchemy. I mean, alchemy.
Feruchemy?
to elemancy. There you go, Jinsia.
Elemancy.
That's what I'm saying. Elemancy seems like metal is central to magic in this world. And it's weird that Feruchemy and elemancy are not related yet. Like they're not, that there's no concrete relation between them yet. I feel like there must be something.
Well, metal.
Yeah. They are related because of the metal, I know that. But I'm saying like something lore-wise needs to connect them. There needs to be something that, like there's no creation story that gives me an idea of where things come from. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Also, just I would be also remiss, sorry, before we go on. Yes, there is a blight. Sorry, we did have this in the, I'm going all the way back to the epigraph of this. There is a blight, and in the Wheel of Time, we have a literal blight. So just had to say yes. Yes, I noticed that. Don't worry, I didn't forget to talk about Wheel of Time. Okay.
As she read her copy of the logbook, Vin was quickly coming to several decisions. First was the firm belief that she did not like reading. Sazed didn't listen to her complaints, he just claimed that she hadn't practiced enough. Couldn't he see that reading was hardly as practical a skill as being able to handle a dagger or use alchemy? I did smile when I read that.
You said
Vin.
alchemy.
Damn it!
And I said alchemy, so I just transferred I said alchemy by mistake. So your brain just said, you know what, that's a good mistake to make.
Couldn't he see that reading was hardly as practical a skill as being able to handle a dagger or use allomancy?
And you liked Vin for that?
I did. That made me smile. That is so Vin.
That's so Vin, and I don't agree with her. The only thing that I can agree in terms of this is reading aloud. Reading itself, very fun. Reading aloud, cannot recommend much. So we're halfway, me and her.
I mean, of course she's wrong on this opinion, but it is very much,
It's very Vin. It's very cute. It's like, yeah, we know Vin.
Yeah.
But good girl for reading. She did do it.
Still, she continued to read as per his orders, if only to stubbornly prove that she could. Many of the logbook's words were difficult for her, and she had to read in a secluded part of Renault's mansion where she could sound out the words to herself, trying to decipher the Lord Ruler's odd style of writing. The continued reading led to her second conclusion. The Lord Ruler was far more whiny than any god had a right to be. I chuckled there.
Yeah.
When pages of the logbook weren't filled with boring notes about the Lord Ruler's travels, they were instead packed with internal contemplations and lengthy moralistic ramblings. Vin was beginning to wish that she'd never found the book in the first place.
So we're starting to get there, yeah.
Even that was fine. A strong start to the chapter, certainly. Mm-hmm. I made that sound because I swear this book is going to be important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this definitely, please no, we're very happy she found the book.
Yes. She sighed, settling back into her wicker chair. A cool early spring breeze blew through the lower gardens, passing over the petite fountain brook to her left. The air was comfortably moist, and the trees overhead shaded her from the afternoon sun. Being nobility, even fake nobility, certainly did have its perks. A quiet footfall sounded behind her. It was distant, but Vin had grown into the habit of burning a little bit of tin at all times. That right there, directly contradicts what Vin said or thought, more specifically, in a previous chapter about not wanting to make a habit of burning the metals because she was convinced that others, whether they be allomancers or not, could detect the reaction time of a person and give that away, that they're an allomancer.
Yeah.
Direct contradiction.
Yeah, it is direct. I think maybe it is because she's secluded. I accepted this because she's by herself in a place outside, and so she might be doing that. Or
it says all times.
Yeah, I know at all times. That's true. You're right. But also the way that she does react, it seems like she's added in extra time before she does react. So she has considered this because she hears it, but now look what she does.
She turned, shooting a covert glance over her shoulder.
Yeah, so she's turning and just like looking covertly, and then she does it. Like she would have kept quiet otherwise, but she sees it Spook, so she's just like, oh, okay. It didn't stand out to me. I really took this very easily. This whole chapter, I was like, yep, here's some more reading. I guess, yeah, I was not as sharp as you. I didn't pick it up. I was not burning any tin. Sorry.
So that is strike one. Anyway.
Spook?
She said with a surprise as young Lestiborns walked down the garden path.
What are you doing here?
Spook froze, blushing. Wasing with the Dox to come and be without the stay.
Doxen? He's here too. Maybe he has news of Kelsia.
Spook nodded, approaching. Weapons for the getting, giving for the time to be. Vin raised an eyebrow.
You lost me on that one.
We needed the drop off some more weapons, Spook said, struggling to speak without his dialect. Storing them here for a while.
Ah, I should go see him.
Spook looked suddenly apprehensive, flushing again, and Vin cocked her head.
Was there something else?
With a sudden movement, Spook reached into his vest and pulled something out. Vin flared pewter in response, but the item was simply a pink and white handkerchief. Spook thrust it toward her. Vin took it uncertainly.
What's this for?
Spook flushed again, then turned and dashed away. Vin watched him go, dumbfounded. She looked down at the handkerchief. It was made of a soft lace, but there didn't seem to be anything unusual about it. Now, reading this, you know what this is about, yeah?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, way to go, Spook.
Oh, what a good boy. So
we don't know the specifics of what it means within the context of the world, but we know that it is a romantic gesture of some kind.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely what he's up to. Yeah. We don't know at this point. We don't know its significance. We just know it is a romantic gesture. We don't know how much of a romantic gesture yet.
Right.
But yeah, you know what it's for, and I love that it's just this little pink thing in the way he just runs away. Also, you will be happy to know that when I read Spook, that's exactly how I hear him now. So there is audiobook Spook who's just like he's a little bit uncertain sounding, but your Spook is so much better. I enjoy it. So when I read Spook, that's what I hear.
Excellent.
And it was so great to actually hear it now.
I appreciate that.
That is one strange boy,
she thought, tucking the handkerchief inside her sleeve. She picked up her copy of the logbook, then began to work her way up the garden path. She was growing so accustomed to wearing a dress that she barely had to pay attention to keep the gown's lower layers from brushing against the underbrush or stones.
I guess that in itself is a valuable skill,
Vin thought as she reached the mansion's garden entrance without having snagged her dress on a single branch. She pushed open the many-paned glass door and stopped the first servant she saw. And, you know what, Kitteh, you've been doing a fair amount of reading this chapter. Let's make you do more. Let's pretend this is a female servant, yes?
Okay. Master Delton has arrived?
She asked, using Doxen's fake name. He played the part of one of Renault's merchant contacts inside Luthadel.
Yes, my lady. He's in the conference with Lord Renault. I don't know.
Vin let the servant go. She could probably force her way into the conference, but it would look bad. Lady Villette had no reason to attend a mercantile meeting between Renaud and Delton. Vin chewed her lower lip in thought. Sazed was always telling her she had to keep up appearances.
Fine, I'll wait. Maybe Sazed can tell me what the crazy boy expects me to do with this handkerchief.
She sought out the upper library, maintaining a pleasant ladylike smile, inwardly trying to guess what Renaud and Doxen were talking about. Dropping off the weapons was an excuse. Doxen wouldn't have come personally to do something so mundane. Perhaps Kelsier had been delayed, or maybe Doxen had finally gotten a communication from Marsh. Kelsier's brother, along with the other new obligator initiates, should be arriving back in Luthadel soon.
Doxen and Renaud could have sent for me,
she thought with annoyance. Villette often entertained guests with her uncle. She shook her head. Although Kelsier had named her a full member of the crew, the others obviously still regarded her as something of a child. They were friendly and accepting, but they didn't think to include her. It was probably unintentional, but that didn't make it any less frustrating.
Just a note here. I think that is the mindset that I'm in with Vin in this chapter. She is a child. I think that's maybe what makes me so forgiving of her, is that she's a teenager that has a boy that has a crush on her and all of that sort of stuff. So I think that's the kind of mindset that made me so forgiving for her character flaws that are so well showcased in this chapter.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are fair frustrations to have thus far.
Yeah, but yeah, she is the reason they still regard her as something of a child is because she is. Yeah.
True. Light shone from the library ahead. Sure enough, Sazed sat inside translating the last group of pages from the logbook. He looked up as Vin entered, smiling and nodding respectfully.
No spectacles this time either. Why did he wear them for that short time before?
Mistress Vin, he said, rising and fetching her a chair. How are your studies of the logbook going? Vin looked down at the loosely bound pages in her hand.
All right, I suppose. I don't see why I have to bother reading them. You gave copies to Cal and Breeze too, didn't you?
Of course, Sazed said, setting the chair down beside his desk. However, Mr. Kelsier asked every member of the crew to read the pages. He is correct to do so, I think. The more eyes that read those words, the more likely we will be to discover the secrets hidden within them. Vin sighed slightly, smoothing her dress and seating herself. The white and blue dress was beautiful. And then at that point, I was just thinking of Belle. Beauty and the Beast Belle, white and blue. Though intended for daily use, it was only slightly less luxurious than one of her ball gowns. You must admit, mistress, the text is amazing. This work is a keeper's dream. Why, I'm discovering things about my culture that even I did not know. Vin nodded.
I just got to the part where they reached Terrace. Hopefully the next part will contain fewer supply lists. Honestly, for an evil god of darkness, he certainly can be dull.
Yes, Sazed said, speaking with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. Did you see what he said, how he described Terrace as a place of green fertility? Keeper legends speak of this. Terrace is now a tundra of frozen dirt. Why, almost no plants can survive there. But once it was green and beautiful, like the text says.
Green and beautiful. Why would green be beautiful? That would be like having blue or purple plants. It would be just weird.
Again, not bad. I enjoy it. Very apropos thought of a person who grows up in a world that isn't green.
Yeah, it's very, it made me think of the garden she came from, right? I'm just like, yeah, as I'm reading of gardens, I have to keep editing them in my head to be less green and just brown. Yeah.
However, there was something about the logbook that made her curious, something that both Sazed and Kelsier had been strangely close-mouthed about.
I just read the part where the Lord Ruler gets some Terrace Pac-Man. He talks about how they grow stronger during the day because they let themselves be weak at night.
Sazed suddenly grew more subdued. Yes, indeed.
You know something about this? Does it have something to do with being a keeper?
It does. But this should remain a secret, I think. Not that you aren't worthy of trust, mistress. However, if fewer people know about keepers, then fewer rumors will be told of us. It would be best if the Lord Ruler began to believe that he has destroyed us completely, as has been his goal for the last 1,000 years.
Fine. Hopefully none of the secrets Kelsier wants us to discover in this text are related to the Terraceman powers. If they are, I'll miss them completely.
Sazed raised an eyebrow.
Ah, well.
Vin said nonchalantly, flipping through the pages she hadn't read.
Looks like he spends a lot of time talking about the Terraceman. Guess I won't be able to give much input when Kelsier gets back.
I chuckled at this moment.
Yeah, she's a little smarty pants there, and then just their little, also just their way she interacts with Sazed is always entertaining.
Sazed has a moment where he comments on being influenced by Kelsier, and it seems to me that both Vin and Sazed are being influenced by Kelsier.
Yeah, exactly.
You make a good point, Sazed said slowly, even if you make it a bit melodramatically. Vin smiled pertly. Oh, very well, Sazed said with a sigh. We should not have let you spend so much time with Master Breeze, I think.
The men in the logbook, they're keepers?
Sazed nodded. What we now call keepers were far more common back then. Perhaps more common than mistings are among modern nobility. Our art is called Feruchemy, and it grants the ability to store certain physical attributes inside bits of metal. Vin frowned.
You burn metals too?
No, mistress, Sazed said with a shake of his head. Feruchemists aren't like allomancers. We don't burn away our metals. We use them as storage. Each piece of metal, dependent upon size and alloy, can store a certain physical quality. The feruchemist save up an attribute and draws upon that reserve at a later time.
Attributes? Like strength?
Sazed nodded. In the text, the Terrace packmen make themselves weaker during the evening, storing up strengths in their bracelets for use on the next day. I'm struggling to conceptualize that. They talk a little bit, I think, about memories. And the way I imagine that working is something like they'll have a memory, and then maybe they'll write the memory down or something, and then they'll put the memory in the metal, and then they forget the memory while it's in the metal. Right? And then they reread what they had just written down but forgotten and get the memory back, and then they can give that memory to another, right?
Yeah, they can, because if you're going to be storing the memory, that means you don't have to have it in your consciousness if you're storing it somewhere. Right. It's going into the metal. So it's like, it literally is like computer storage.
With the muscle example here, in theory, you could say be able to bench press 100 pounds, and you can put, let's say, 10 pounds worth of muscle into the metal for storing. You therefore give up that 10 pounds. You would only be able to bench press 90 pounds, right? Yeah. Presumably, you would have to build that muscle back up to 100 and then store it again, and then you'll have 20 muscle weight, ability, energy that you could withdraw, right?
Yeah. So, and it's just, yeah, I think maybe if you let it remain vague, it makes sense. You're just like, oh well, he gets it from there. Okay, it's magic.
I suppose the point of all this is I'm struggling to see why you would store your strength at night unless like you lose, because the amount by which you age in a day cannot be so much that you're going to store all your strength every night, right? Surely it's not worth it.
What are you saying? It's not worth aging yourself up.
No. So
know more about the mechanics.
What I'm saying is, aging is a slow process. You arguably cannot tell how much more or less weight you could lift after aging one single day, right? So I'm struggling to understand why the Terracemen would determined to store their strength every night. It seems like it might be more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I just, there's more to it that I feel like I want clarified, but I don't have the vocabulary or the imagination to ask what it is that I want to know.
I do kind of get it. You just want to, you know what you want to know? More.
Yes,
That's what
I would like to specifically ask the Terraceman, I understand that you can do this thing.
But
why are
why?
you doing it?
Yeah. Why is this better than just sleeping and resting your current body? Why do you have to degrade your borrowed body and put the strength away? Because you're what's the efficiency of this? I think that's a good question. I think it's good enough.
Anyway.
And we don't have
Where
the
were
answer
we?
yet. Thanks, Sazed. That's why you wear so many earrings.
Yes, mistress, he said, reaching over to pull up his sleeves. Underneath his robe, he wore thick iron bracers around his upper arms. I keep some of my reserves hidden, but wearing many rings, earrings, and other items of jewelry has always been a part of Terrace culture. The Lord Ruler once tried to enforce a ban upon Terracemen touching or owning any metal. In fact, he tried to make wearing metal a noble-only privilege, rather than a scavan.
And I thought of Shan's Terraceman steward who wore many rings.
Yeah. And terminology-wise, I wonder, I don't know if there is a unit of storage that they call a metal mind, or if it's literally just a certain item of clothing or something that they call a metal mind. You know what I'm saying? So like, would those braces each be a metal mind, one on each arm, or is it like a unit of storage that they talk about? So that's my question for him. But obviously he won't answer it because he's so uncomfortable with talking too much about himself. Also covers himself up even though he's just talking to her. That's odd. One would think that nobility wouldn't want to wear metal because that would make them vulnerable to allomancy.
Indeed. However, it has long been imperial fashion to accent one's wardrobe with metal. It began, I suspect, with the Lord Ruler's desire to deny the Terracemen the right to touch metal. He himself began wearing metal rings and bracelets, and the nobility always follows him in fashion. Nowadays, the most wealthy often wear metal as a symbol of power and pride.
Sounds foolish.
Fashion often is, mistress.
I liked that line.
Regardless, the ploy failed. Many of the nobility only wear wood painted to look like metal, and the Terrace managed to weather the Lord Ruler's discontent in this area. It was simply too impractical to never let stewards handle metal. That hasn't stopped the Lord Ruler from trying to exterminate the keepers, however.
That is kind of weird for me. I'm like, I don't know how impractical it is to just make them not wear it. Like they can handle it, but not wear it. It seems like that would be kind of easy just to make them not do. So it's interesting that they just did manage to weather these things. He just allowed this. I'm like, wow, that surprised me. So
yeah, I'm getting the sense the Lord Ruler is potentially less powerful than his reputation belies.
And or he's so confident in having exterminated the keepers that he really thinks that them wearing metals is just a tradition thing. It's not that they actually use them. But it seems to me that like you say with Shan's Terracemen or whatever, I think the keepers they might be more prevalent than we expect, and I would expect nobility to use them quite a lot. So I wonder if Shan's Terraceman is also a keeper. But apparently
that too.
They are supposed to be too rare. It should be very unlikely. But
it's like every time we get a new misting in the book, we ask, is it really a Mistborn? Do we know?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it a keeper? Do we know?
He fears you.
And hates us. Not just feruchemists, but all Terracemen. Sazed laid a hand on the still untranslated portion of the text. I hope to find that secret in here as well. No one remembers why the Lord Ruler persecutes the Terrace people, but I suspect that it has something to do with those packmen. Their leader, Rashek, appears to be a very contrary man. The Lord Ruler often speaks of him in the narrative. Now, we had theorized that as well, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We were like, oh, does Rashek do something to the Lord Ruler? And then, like, I even theorized that the Lord Ruler is then disposed of and Rashek takes over. But then I was like, wait, why would he then go and persecute his people?
Yeah.
After that. So yeah, but the point is we do think that there must be some sort of conflict between him and the Lord Ruler.
Yes.
He mentioned religion, the terrorist religion, something about prophecies.
Sazed shook his head. I cannot answer that question, mistress, for I don't know any more of the terrorist religions than you do.
But you collect religions. You don't know about your own, which I found so sad. I'm sorry. I was very sad.
Yeah.
It's
it
like, oh,
really is.
he really has destroyed their culture. He really hates them and fears them.
Yep. I do not. You see, mistress, this was why the keepers were formed. Centuries ago, my people hid away the last few Terrace feruchemists. The Lord Ruler's purges of the Terrace people were growing quite violent. This was before he began the breeding program. Back then, we weren't stewards or servants. We weren't even Ska. We were something to be destroyed. Yet something kept the Lord Ruler from wiping us out completely. I don't know why. Perhaps he thought genocide too kind a punishment. Anyway, he successfully destroyed our religion during the first 2 centuries of his rule. The Organization of Keepers was formed during the next century, its members intent upon discovering that which had been lost, then remembering for the future.
So I'm sorry, just before we go into the further, I am wondering why he is this going back to the idea of the Lord Ruler isn't as powerful as we think? Because why didn't he just genocide them, or why did he go and then breed them? It doesn't seem like a good enough answer to me. Oh well, genocide just wouldn't be was too kind. I'm like, no, it seems like he hates them enough, so he needs them in some way. Why does he need this breeding program? Why does he need to control them? What does he need them for?
Agreed, and I think this is things we've wondered in the past, yeah?
Yeah, and we still wonder. With Feruchemy?
Sazed nodded, rubbing his fingers across the bracer on his right arm. This one is made of copper. It allows for the storage of memories and thoughts. Each keeper carries several bracers like these, filled with knowledge, songs, stories, prayers, histories, and languages. Many keepers have a particular area of interest. Mine is religion, but we all remember the entire collection. If just one of us survives until the death of the Lord Ruler, then the world's people will be able to recover all that they have lost. Now, this one had me wondering if, it's like the internet. If what Sazed puts in one ring able to be accessed by any other Terrace person?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I was wondering, surely Kelsier and Sazed have both tried to utilize this 11th metal through Sazed's Feruchemy.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah, that would be another way to see, like, what can it store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or what is it storing?
Yeah. Yeah, it could be some sort of deposit of some sort of knowledge or some sort of something.
Yeah. So I can understand, like, if there is such a limited quantity of it, I can understand not wanting to eat it for fear of safety, but surely that's how you discover if it can be burnt or not, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want to go through all of the quality. I wonder how risky it would be for Sazed to touch it and be like,
what does
metal
it entail?
might be with it. Yeah.
Yeah. What does it entail for you to meld with it? What's the risks of that? And I mean, and there is the hint there because he says this is made of copper. So copper is, I suppose, for memories. So it seems like each metal also has its own kind of thing. So he would need a different kind of metal for strength and a different kind of metal for, which makes it so much related to Allomancy that I'm like, there has to be something
Yeah.
that makes them, that relates them.
Yeah.
Just in their mechanics, or genetically, just something.
And what I'm saying is, I really want to know specifically at this point now what Kelsier is doing specifically to try and discover what the 11th metal does.
Yeah, what has he done and what is he doing? Because he better be working on it. Doesn't seem like he has. Seems like he was like, that was a good idea. And then he's like, oh shit, that's quite scary to think about. And then he just leaves it. So, there's nothing we've learned from that so far, except that Kelsier likes lying about it.
Indeed. He paused, then pulled down his sleeve. Well, not all that was lost. There are still things that we are missing.
Your own religion. You never found it, did you?
Sazed shook his head. The Lord Ruler implies in his logbooks that it was our prophets who led him to the Well of Ascension, but even this is new information for us. What did we believe? What or whom did we worship? Where did these terrorist prophets come from, and how did they predict the future? We continue to look, mistress. We will find our answers eventually, I think. Even if we do not, we still have provided an invaluable service to mankind. Other people call us docile and servile, but we have fought him in our own way.
Vin nodded.
So what other things can you store? Strength and memories. Anything else?
Sazed eyed her. I have said too much already, I think.
Oh, you know what? If they can all access everyone else's metal, then that might explain why they store their strength in the evenings. It's so that other folks can access it if necessary, perhaps.
Something. Also, sorry, I haven't made the comparison yet, so I don't know why I didn't. You were talking about how creepy that looks. It might look or whatever. That did remind me of that imagery or whatever. Did remind me of the Lord Ruler basically emerging from a fire or something, and then healing within seconds. Like it seems like he had access to that. That it just. There was that connection for me. I was like, oh, wait, does he have both? Does he have Allomancy and Feruchemy? So interesting.
Okay. Hot take prediction. Big hot take prediction. What if the prophecy is not a prophecy at all, but a memory? Like, what if there was an apocalyptic event, the Deepness, that was stopped in the past, and it is remembered through the generations via the metal mines, and they know from the memory that the Deepness wasn't truly stopped and that it would come back, and they are just detailing the way it can be stopped.
But the Deepness was doing something, though. It was there. There was something to fight. So it was a threat that was there. And also, he talks about a blight, right? And the blight, we think of the blight in the beginning. We think of the blight as like this ashen thing. But then you hear what Sazed says about what Terrace looks like now, and it's like basically tundra. So I wonder if that's what the blight lands up being, is just that everything just gets completely obliterated and becomes frozen. I don't know. Blighting is rotting, of sort,
yes,
of some sort. Yeah. So I don't know. We shall see. I don't know. Theories abound.
Yes. I have said too much already, I think. You understand the mechanics of what we do. If the Lord Ruler mentions these things in his text, he will not be confused.
Sight. That's why you wore glasses for a few weeks after you rescued me. You needed to be able to see better that night when you saved me. So you used up your storage. Then you spent a few weeks with weak vision so that you could refill it.
Sazed didn't respond to the comment. He picked up his pen, obviously intending to turn back to his translation. Was there anything else, mistress?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Vin said, pulling the handkerchief from her sleeve.
Do you have any idea what this is?
It appears to be a handkerchief, mistress. Vin raised a droll eyebrow.
Very funny. You've spent far too long around Kelsier, Sazed.
I know. He has corrupted me, I think. Regardless, I do not understand your question. What is distinctive about that particular handkerchief?
That's what I want to know. Spook gave it to me just a little bit ago.
Ah, that makes sense then.
What?
In noble society, mistress, a handkerchief is the traditional gift a young man gives a lady that he wishes to seriously court. Vin regarded the handkerchief with shock.
What? Is that boy crazy?
Most young men his age are somewhat crazy, I think, Sazed said with a smile. However, this is hardly unexpected. Haven't you noticed how he stares at you when you enter the room?
I just thought he was creepy. What is he thinking? He's so much younger than me.
Okay. The elephant is out of control. That's a reference.
Yes.
This
I'm with you this time.
I'm so angry. I have a bias.
Mm-hmm.
I am a male,
Mm-hmm.
and I am not a particularly attractive male. I don't like the word creepy. I think it is an exceptionally cruel word.
Women bandy that word around. Yep.
I think it completely denigrates the courage that it takes for men to approach women. I think, as you have said, women bandy the word about. It really, really bothers me that she uses the word creepy. It is cruel. And Vin does not have a single cruel bone in her body. She has never thought a cruel thing. She has never thought a mean thing. She has never thought a vindictive thing. And beyond that, we have had very specific belief statements from Vin regarding Spook. What a strange boy. What an awkward boy. She was even starting to like that strange little Spook. She doesn't dislike Spook. She has never thought an unkind thing. Strange, awkward, those are not mean words. Creepy was a very, very poor choice of word here, and I think it damages Vin's character tremendously. It is out of character.
It makes you think of the woman that if a certain kind of man is looking at them that way, if they're attractive enough, creepy, gone. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like that Netflix series You. People were women were like falling over themselves because the stalker guy is quite attractive, and they're like, I would like him to be obsessed with me, like as a bit of a joke. But it's like no. So it's okay. You can get away with a lot of behavior just if you look the right way. So this makes it seem like she is one of those girls that has
Vapid.
Yeah, she's vapid. She's very dismissive of, like you said, the courage as well, and she's just dismissive of certain kinds of men, and dismissive with that ugly word creepy. Like what that insinuates is stalkerish vibes and things like that, instead of just a person looking at you. Like creepy I think you're right on that. It's not a great word.
And young men can gawk, but again, she has never had an uncomfortable thought about him before. If she had, if there were previous thoughts in the book to back that up about being made uncomfortable with it, then the word might, big might, be more appropriate. But she has thought strange and awkward and starting to like Spook.
She should have. It's strange or awkward. That should have been something.
Yeah,
that should have been a different word.
I
this
thought
is not a good. Yeah.
I just thought he was strange. I just thought he was odd.
Weird.
I just thought he was weird, but creepy. I'm sorry. Honestly, it triggered me a little bit.
No, I think that we just are sensitive to that word. But I agree that it's it's very vapid, and I don't like that idea of being associated with Vin. But maybe that's kind of where she's going at this point. She's moved out of her empathetic nature for a bit.
Yeah, I mean,
she's become a bit full of herself.
If I'm trying to be charitable to the word, I could say, well, it's part of her becoming more of a noble lady, but there's nothing yet that's been indicated, even with all of her previous thoughts about empathy for them. It's like I said, she's not a cruel, mean person. She doesn't have those kinds of thoughts, even though she's even looking for the best in the noble people when she's trying to defend them. So that is not my strongest argument to say that it's her becoming a noble lady, because even there, she's looking for the best in people.
Yeah, I do think this is still part of her straddling nobility and scarness at the same time. And also having this huge crush on Elend, it makes her view other men completely, other boys basically, completely differently. She might actually think of other guys cruelly, maybe, because she just loves this Elend one so much. Anyway,
she didn't even think cruelly of Kamen or Ulef.
Yeah,
she had a cold thought about Kamen and Ulef after what had happened to them, but she did not have a cruel thought.
Yeah. One word makes all the difference. It's amazing. I love it.
Yep.
Anyway, the boy is 15, mistress. That only makes him 1 year your junior.
2. I turned 17 last week.
Still, he isn't really that much younger than you.
I don't have time for his attentions.
One would think, mistress, that you would appreciate the opportunities you have. Not everyone is so fortunate.
Vin grimaced inwardly.
He's a eunuch, you fool. Sazed, I'm sorry.
Sazed waved a hand. It is something I have never known enough of to miss, mistress. Perhaps I am fortunate. A life in the underground does not make it easy to raise a family. Why, poor Master Hammond has been away from his wife for months.
Ham's married?
And that was basically my response.
Certainly. So is Master Yedden, I believe. They protect their families by separating them from underground activities, but this necessitates spending large periods of time apart.
Who else? Breeze? Doxen?
Master Breeze is a bit too self-motivated for a family, I think. Master Doxen hasn't spoken of his romantic life, but I suspect that there is something painful in his past. That is not uncommon for plantation ska, as you might expect.
Doxen is from a plantation?
Vin asked with surprise. Indeed. Don't you ever spend time talking with your friends, mistress?
Friends? I have friends.
It was an odd realization. Regardless, I should continue my work. I'm sorry to be so dismissive, but I am nearly finished with the translation.
Of course,
Vin said, standing and smoothing her dress.
Thank you.
So that's a section of the chapter.
A scene, yeah.
A scene. Anything to comment before we move on to the next?
That line of friends, I have friends, it doesn't hit as hard as it could have when we've just had this kind of character, not destroying, but this uncharacteristic feeling about Vin with the creepy word. We've been out of this Vin affection, and then we get Vin saying, "Oh, I have friends." Like, I think I would feel a lot more affection for her, for that line, and happiness for her if I hadn't had the feelings I had about the Spook thing.
Agreed.
It would have hit different, man.
Yeah, no, I know it's just a word. It's just one word in a book with what, 80,000 other words, but it
just didn't land the right way.
Yeah. Friends, I have friends is a nice moment.
It is a nice moment that we would usually go, "Oh, well done, Vin. Yeah, you do have friends." Like, I think also, just even if we take out the creepy thing, Vin is being so dismissive of Spook, and I think I just take offense to that. She's not even curious about it, and I think it's because I like him. So
look, it's not that I ship them that I am upset on his behalf. It's genuinely a poorly worded sentence.
Yeah, but for me though, just the way, and I'm with Sazed, like the fact that she just dismisses these opportunities. That's what she's kind of very entitled. So like Sazed said, she's like, oh well, I'm sorry, I would be quite flattered, or like basically it's that sort of thing. Like, listen, just be happy that you even have that sort of attention going for you. Okay, that's really nice. Like, I'm not saying,
it's a very young mindset, I think.
Yeah. Also, and it's very that dismissive young mindset. I'm in that part of Vin at the moment. That's where I'm busy. That's the part of her character I'm engaged with at the moment. And then having that I have friends, I just don't have affection for it as I should because of that character flaw that I'm interacting with. Also, just something very sweet about Spook is that he actually, I don't know if there's Scar traditions or whatever with the romance, but he made a noble gesture.
Yeah,
he did a nobility sort of society gesture. He didn't do, and he got. I mean, this. Can you imagine? Like, how does he find something as pretty as this little handkerchief that's lace and pink and whatever? Like, the Scar just live in gray. Okay.
Yes.
So the fact that it's colorful and dainty and everything is so sweet, and just the sweetness of it like offends her.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. That's it. Just I it's not like I hate Vin now. I'm just like, that is one of the failings of teenage girls, I suppose.
Yes. Look, my bias here is that I ship the two of them, but it's not connected to my prediction. I do think the two of them will get together at some point in the trilogy.
Interesting. That would be quite an interesting way of talking. I still need to learn this dialect. I still don't know how it works.
Oh, man. She found Doxen sitting in the guest study, writing quietly on a piece of paper, a pile of documents organized neatly on the desktop. He wore a standard nobleman's suit and always looked more comfortable in the clothing than the others did. Kelsier was dashing, Breeze immaculate and lavish, but Doxen, he simply looked natural in the outfit. He looked up as she entered. Vin? I'm sorry. I should have sent for you. For some reason, I assumed you were out.
I often am these days,
she said, closing the door behind her.
I stayed home today. Listening to noblewomen prattle over their lunches can get a bit annoying.
I can imagine. Have a seat. Vin nodded, strolling into the room. It was a quiet place, decorated in warm colors and deep woods. It was still somewhat light outside, but Doxen already had the evening drapes drawn and was working by candlelight.
Any news from Kelsier?
No, Doxen said, setting aside his document. But that's not unexpected. He wasn't going to stay at the caves for long, so sending a messenger back would have been a bit silly. As an Allomancer, he might be able to get back before a man on horseback. Either way, I suspect he'll be a few days late. This is Kel we're talking about, after all. Vin nodded, then sat quietly for a moment. She hadn't spent as much time with Doxen as she had with Kelsier and Sazed, or even Ham and Breeze. However, he seemed like a kind man, very stable and very clever. While most of the others contributed some kind of allomantic power to the crew, Doxen was valuable because of his simple ability to organize. When something needed to be purchased, such as Vin's dresses, Doxen saw that it got done. When a building needed to be rented, supplies procured, or a permit secured, Doxen made it happen. He wasn't out front scamming noblemen, fighting in the mists, or recruiting soldiers, but without him, Vin suspected that the entire crew would fall apart.
He's a nice man. He won't mind if I ask him. Dox, what was it like living on a plantation?
The plantation.
You grew up on one, right? You're a plantation Scar?
Yes, or at least I was. What was it like? I'm not sure how to answer, Vin. It was a hard life, but most Scar live hard lives. I wasn't allowed to leave the plantation, or even go outside the hovel community without permission. We ate more regular than a lot of the street Scar, but we worked as hard as any mill worker, perhaps more. The plantations are different from the cities. Out there, every lord is his own master. Technically, the lord ruler owns the Scar, but the noblemen rent them, and are allowed to kill as many as they want. Each lord only has to make certain that his crops come in.
You seem so unemotional about it.
And that's not because of my poor acting ability when trying to do the accent.
It's just Vin.
Doxen shrugged. It's been a while since I lived there, Vin. I don't know that the plantation was overly traumatic. It was just life. We didn't know anything better. In fact, I now know that among plantation lords, mine was actually rather lenient.
Why did you leave then?
Doxen hesitated. There was an event, he said, his voice growing almost wistful. You know that the law says that a lord can bed any skaa woman that he wishes? Okay, so this had me do a double take, and this is the other thing that made me dislike this chapter. At this point, I had to go back and reread the prologue chapter because I had the impression, which I guess ended up being incorrect, that it was illegal and extremely frowned upon for the nobles to sleep with the skaa because of the risk of bearing children. And technically, it doesn't say that that's the case. The first chapter, with this added bit of knowledge that I now have, seems to imply that the sketchy thing about trusting specifically was that he was into the younger girls. It's all horrible. And I also feel really gross having just said that. So I guess technically this isn't a contradiction, but it just makes so much more sense to me that it would be outlawed entirely to the best of the Lord Ruler's abilities. But then I think about what Ham said in the last episode, which I believe we critiqued, which was that there had been enough interbreeding between the skaa and the noblemen that they started to look like each other, that it was becoming harder and harder to tell the difference between the two. Why is the Lord Ruler allowing this? And why is he allowing any interbreeding if this is the case? If it is so common practice that there does end up being half-breed children on such a wide scale, if he is so intent that there be none, why is this the law of the land? I don't like this.
The fact that it's weird that it isn't outlawed and still happening, as opposed to it's allowed as long as you kill them afterwards, as long as there's no children, there's no childbearing, it's fine. So it's like it's kind of sanctioned, so it kind of encourages it. So it's like it would be better, I would say, yes, the way we thought of it before, that it's not just frowned it's not just frowned upon, it's actually the law not to breed or have any sort of relations between the two. But this over here is like, no, you're allowed, but just make sure that you kill them off, which is just it seems less efficient. You should be trying to not have that happen. You would rather have, not rather, it's not that I don't want anyone dying, but I'm just saying, like, it would seem more prudent to make it a law that you shouldn't be interbreeding at all.
Now, you can take the Kelsier book perspective that by outlawing it, you are inadvertently creating a society that wants to. But even then, surely the Lord Ruler needs to put his foot down on some things, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like he hasn't been putting his foot down as much as, again, his reputation belies. He gave up on the terrace wearing metal thing. It's very strange. And it makes, they get into it a little bit later, but it makes prostitution a much more lethal job.
It's highly impractical, because you would need you need a lot of stock. But I suppose that's it. Anyway, let us continue.
You know that the law says that the Lord can bed any skaa woman that he wishes.
He just has to kill her when he's done.
Or soon thereafter, quickly enough that she can't birth any half-breed children.
The Lord took a woman you loved then?
I don't talk about it much. Not because I can't, but because I think it would be pointless. I'm not the only skaa to lose a loved one to a lord's passion, or even to a lord's indifference.
In fact, I'll bet you'd have trouble finding a Ska who hasn't had someone they love murdered by the aristocracy. That's just the way it is. Again, I love Doxen so much, and it's another brand of stoicism. Like, they all have this stoic acceptance, but it manifests in their characters in such unique ways.
I like it. I like Dox. We liked him from the beginning, but then I like this insight into him and his attitude.
Yes.
Who was she?
A girl from the plantation. Like I said, my story isn't that original. I remember sneaking between the hovels at night to spend time with her. The entire community played along, hiding us from the taskmasters. I wasn't supposed to be out after dark, you see. I braved the mists for the first time for her. And while many thought me foolish to go out at night, others got over their superstition and encouraged me. I think the romance inspired them. Karain and I reminded everyone that there was something to live for. When Karain was taken by Lord Devonshire, her corpse returned the next morning for burial. Something just died in the Ska hovels. I left the next evening. I didn't know there was a better life, but I just couldn't stay. Not with Karain's family there, not with Lord Devonshire watching us work. Doxen sighed, shaking his head. Vin could finally see some emotion in his face. You know, it amazes me sometimes that we bother to try. With everything they've done to us, the deaths, the tortures, the agonies, you'd think that we would give up on things like hope and love. But we don't. Ska still fall in love. They still try to have families, and they still struggle. I mean, here we are, fighting Kel's insane little war, resisting a god we know is going to slaughter us all. Finn sat there, trying to comprehend the horror of what he described.
I thought you said that your lord was a kind one.
Oh, he was. Lord Devonshire rarely beat his Ska to death, and he only purged the elderly when the population got completely out of control. He has an impeccable reputation among the nobility. You've probably seen him at some of the balls. He's been in Luthadel lately, over the winter, between planting seasons. Vin felt cold.
Doxen, that's horrible. How could they let a monster like that among them?
Doxen frowned, then he leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on the desktop. Vin, they're all like that.
I know that's what some of the Scars say, Dox. But the people at the balls, they aren't like that. I've met them, danced with them. Dox, a lot of them are good people. I don't think they realize how terrible things are for the Scar.
Okay, so this is where, and it's the rest of this conversation, that I compared my criticism of Vin this chapter to Yedden and what I was saying. So we have Vin's line and the use of the word creepy, which I think is a negative character trait for her. It significantly pulls her back. But this conversation, it's like with Yedden, where Brandon Sanderson just slammed his foot down on the acceleration because she had these feelings in her last POV chapter, but she was much more conflicted about them. And I am shocked that she doesn't, not that she puts word to the thoughts, but that she speaks them with such conviction to Doxen. I would expect her to be feeling them out a bit more, testing the waters, so to speak, especially given what Doxen was telling her. And again, the name drop at the end of this chapter is about Elend, and because we have had her thinking these thoughts before, and we know that Elend is fueling these thoughts in her, it is just surprising to me that the way these next paragraphs are written in such a way as to make the Elend name drop some sort of reveal. But we already know, so why isn't she invoking his name in her thought, not necessarily to Doxen, but in the prose before that last line? It bothers me.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so you feel like the name is a reveal. It feel the way that she didn't have it in her mind as she was going through this conversation. It was kind of a name drop, like literally as if it was a reveal. I didn't feel like the name was a reveal. I didn't feel like that. I didn't feel its absence the way you did in the rest of in this conversation.
But again,
I have to comment on my bias here. I was so upset over the creepy thing that I was just primed to not like this chapter because of it. So
Yeah.
that is my bias. I acknowledge it.
Declared. Yeah, it's fine. For me, I wasn't so shocked by Vin acting out or being so convinced even to talk about this, because yes, she is conflicted, but she's trying. She knows what she wants to believe, so she says these things to Doxen, and Doxen is going to shut her down and put her straight. I think it's because she just really wants what she's saying to be true, and I was a bit more forgiving of her stupidity, I suppose, her naivety. Like, because we know she's a very she's a very perceptive girl. We know she has moral questions about the nobility, but we also know that she wants them to be, because of this affection she has for Ellen. It's very important to her that they are good people. That's why her immediate thought after this is about him. Is, wait a second, what if I believe this about them? I have to believe this about him, and that conflict is it feels like it's at its right point. I don't feel like it's been too accelerated for me. I know that she's just acting it out. She's just, and also her youth, we know her feelings, but she's going to just act out in a certain way. She's not going to be very like you said, she'll feel it. Yeah, this is young and stupid Vin. She's not feeling it out or trying to, like, she doesn't seem to realize how insulting it is. Yeah.
I wasn't the only one that lost control of my elephant this chapter. She does too, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have anything else to say? I feel like I cut you off there. Sorry.
No, I was just rambling and continuing with the same thought in different formats. So
Doxen looked at her with a strange expression. Am I really hearing this from you, Vin? Why do you think we're fighting against them? Don't you realize the things those people, all of those people, are capable of?
Cruelty, perhaps, and indifference. But they aren't monsters, not all of them. Not like your former plantation lord. I'll say Vin, they're capable of cruelty. That's a bad thing. I don't know how you're like, oh, well, they can be cruel and yeah, I guess they can be indifferent. The cope is real. She's huffing that copium. Damn.
Doxen shook his head again. You aren't seeing well enough, Vin. A nobleman can rape and murder a skaa woman one night, then be praised for his morality and virtue the next day. Skaa aren't people to them. Noblewomen don't even consider it cheating when their lord sleeps with a skaa woman. Vin trailed off, growing uncertain. This was the one area of noble culture she hadn't wanted to confront. Beatings she could perhaps forgive, but this... You're letting them dupe you, Vin. Things like this are less visible in the cities because of whorehouses, but the murders still happen. Some brothels use women of very poor but noble birth. Most simply kill off their skaa whores periodically to keep the inquisitors placated. Vin felt a little weak.
I know about the brothels, Dox. My brother always threatened to sell me to one. But just because brothels exist doesn't mean that all men go to them. There are lots of workers who don't visit the skaa or whorehouses.
Noblemen are different, Vin. They're horrible creatures. Why do you think I don't complain when Kelsier kills them? Why do you think I'm working with him to overthrow their government? You should ask some of those pretty boys you dance with how often they've slept with a skaa woman they knew would be killed a short time later. They've all done it at one point or another. Vin looked down. They can't be redeemed, Vin, Doxen said. He didn't seem as passionate about the topic as Kelsier. He merely seemed resigned. I don't think the Kel will be happy until they're all dead. I doubt we have to go that far, or even that we can. But I, for one, would be more than happy to see their society collapse. Vin sat quietly.
They can't all be like that. They're so beautiful, so distinguished. Elend has never taken and murdered a skaa woman, has he?
End chapter.
She is just so naive, and she's trying so hard to just hold these two worldviews at the same time, just for this guy, and it is irritating. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, get your shit together, Vin. And I'm like, yeah, Doxen, you tell her straight. This is what it's like, and yeah.
I love that she's flawed and that she is a flawed character.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And she's trying to make this make sense for her, but she can't deny it. Having Doxen there to mirror my feelings about, am I really hearing this from you, Vin? That helps as well, because you're just like, okay, cool. It is within context a weird thing to hear from her, but we understand the underlying motivations. We see what she's trying to do. So yeah, I was way more forgiving of putting this in as a, like, from a meta perspective than you were. But yeah, that doesn't mean I'm not pissed off with Vin or disappointed in her. I know she's smarter than that. And just thinking about Scar falling in love, all of that didn't even make her think about Lesterborn. She didn't think of Spook at all when Doxen's like, yeah, Scar's still fallen in love and everything. And I picked up also very much how immediately the way she is thinking, it's all about Ellen. She was thinking, she gets very uncomfortable when she thinks about, listen, noble women don't even think it's cheating when Scar, when noble men,
sleep with Scar.
She was thinking about, oh wait, if he cheated on me, like it is very much, it's all about this bloody crush that she's got on him, because she is thinking, oh, if he cheated on me, I would still consider it cheating. Like, yeah, but now look at this. You can't hold these two worldviews at the same time, Vin. You are still Scar, and there is still a huge problem with this societal difference between you two. And yeah, okay, I know we can't. It's possible that Iland hasn't done this, but he's definitely been complacent in it. It's not like it's just life to him. They aren't people. She's gonna have to come around to this.
Yeah. We know about Ellen's revolutionary tendencies, so we don't know the depth to which he has taken steps to better the conditions of the Ska. Nevertheless, there is still a large barrier between them, with many other hurdles necessary, and Spook is so nice.
Yeah. Spook, just because you guys can't talk, like, look, he tried. Did very well to the way he spoke today. I just want to speak to him more because he's just so cute. Yeah. And I guess what else? I rate the chapter better than you do, but I see what frustrated you about it. And yeah, what else?
I really, really hope that the next several chapters go back to the quality that I had come to expect. I'm still enjoying the story. It's still fantastic in that way, and I'm still like hooked. And there was some other good stuff in this chapter. The Sazed section was nice for the most part. It just, the feels took control this one for me. So
yeah, it's not, but the thing is, it made you feel things. It didn't make you disengage with the book and not want to read it anymore. It's just, here is the experience here of reading a book, and you don't just get the story that you want to hear. You just get the story that's written. It's great. I love it. And I like that we saw this chapter differently to each other. Yeah. And similar in many ways as well. We saw the same things as well.
And with all of that said,
yes,
if you haven't subscribed to ThatDarnKitteh, go and do so. She's got a great channel, and
blah about me, whatever. Go and subscribe. Click right underneath here if you are not subscribed to the No One Asked You podcast. And you know what? If you are subscribed, you better be liking it. Like the video, please. I'm waiting. Thank you.
But seriously, Kitteh's channel is awesome. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.